Home Affairs is piloting a program called Trusted Employer Scheme. This is meant to make the hiring of skilled foreigners easier. Well, let's get some detail now as to how the business sector is reacting to this, and we're joined in studio by Marisa Jacobs, a managing director at Xpatweb. Marisa, good morning to you, and thank you for coming in. Let's begin with the question about whether South Africa does have a critical skills gap.
Absolutely, I think it is undeniable, but it's not just South Africa. There's a global skills gap. So yes, South Africa is definitely looking to attract more skills. Business has clearly said that they need more skills. Unable to find all those skills in South Africa, there's a supply-demand gap, and therefore they need to bring those skills in from abroad.
Yeah. So, as we've already said, this scheme, it's intended to allow South Africa to easily attract those skills into the country. But how does a business prove that indeed there is a gap in the business that requires them to fill that with a person who is not of South African origin? And importantly, Marisa, how does a company pass the financial means test in order for that person to be employed in South Africa?
So in terms of your first question, that is research that has already been done by government, where the Department of Higher Education and Training, along with the Department of Labour and Department of Home Affairs, have come together, done the research to say these are the occupations that we struggle to recruit and that there is a critical skills shortage of in South Africa. So if you are a business and you are looking to recruit someone that's on that preset list of critical skills, you already have the green tick from government to say you may bring that skill in from outside of the country, because we agree with you. You cannot. It's difficult to find that skill in South Africa, and if you haven't been able to find it, you can look for it from abroad. And then secondly, this is in terms of the Trusted Employer Scheme, where to qualify to become a trusted employer, you need to meet that financial threshold where you can show that you have brought in investment into the country to gain those points to be on the list.
Part of the aim of this scheme is to ensure that red tape is reduced. So, how does the business qualify to be basically pushed up the line in order for them to be prioritized, for that visa to be prioritized, to say, we're pushing for this company because they have satisfied the needs analysis, if you like?
So the government gazette that's just been published that now is calling for employers to say, please express your interest to be part of this Trusted Employer Scheme, has set out certain criteria that companies need to meet, and they have 40 days, which the deadline would be the 20th of November, to submit their interest in terms of the scheme. And there is a point system that's been laid out by the Department of Home Affairs, that there is 100 points to be made, and you need to meet a threshold of at least 80 points in order to be considered eligible. And then the final decision obviously rests with the Department of Home Affairs in terms of which companies will be approved to be on the scheme and which not. And they've also made it quite clear that they want to keep the list of companies quite small, especially initially in the pilot phase, so that they can manage to deliver on those promises that they're hoping for businesses to benefit from, of which one, as you said, is to reduce the red tape and bring some predictability and consistency in terms of immigration and bringing skills into the country.
The department, when it introduced this scheme, it also does say that part of this is to manage the migration issue. And we have a lot of that in the country at the moment. And so it brings the question as to how easy or difficult is it for the companies to prove that they've looked the length and breadth of South Africa, and they simply cannot find this skill, and therefore the application to bring a foreign skill.
It's a very interesting debate within immigration. So there's different categories of work visa that you can apply for. Critical skills, you don't need to prove that you have searched the length and breadth to bring that skill in, because the department has predetermined that this list of occupations you may bring someone in from outside. It's obviously difficult to bring someone in from outside. It's expensive. There's a long waiting period. So business tends to, if they can find the skill locally, they'll absolutely prefer to employ the skill locally. It really is when they have found that they cannot find that skill locally that they start recruiting outside of South Africa. And then, of course, the other category is the general work visa, where you have to first apply to the Department of Labour and they need to give a certificate where they say that they've looked at your evidence of how you have tried to employ a local South African, and they agree with you that this skill or this person is not available in the market, and therefore you can expand your search.
Final question to you. The work visa backlog has reportedly worsened in the last few months. What is driving that, and what does that tell us in terms of that critical skills gap that exists in the country?
Yes, unfortunately you're correct. Earlier in the year we heard about 60,000 backlog. The latest number that came through on the 31st of August is a 74,000 backlog, so quite a significant increase. Again, the feedback from the department is that it's a capacity issue. They simply cannot get through. If you look at the number of applications that come in daily and the number that they're able to process daily, there's a mismatch, and it's a capacity issue. And I think, therefore, this trusted employer scheme really is of great benefit to both business as well as to the department, because it aims to reduce the documentation threshold, which obviously means that the burden is being moved to the company instead of the department, and will allow them to get through the applications quicker, and will allow business to get the visas quicker.
Interestingly, whilst we're talking on air, we are showing viewers that point system from the department, and it springs up the question as to what skills are actually missing in the South African market. What are these critical skills that companies simply cannot find, or even government departments cannot find? I know, for example, at Eskom, because it's been in the news for so long, that's an engineering sector, and therefore there is a critical need for experienced and highly knowledgeable engineers. In general, what other skills are there that are simply missing in the South African market?
So if we look at, we run an annual critical skills survey where we specifically survey business to ask, what do you struggle most? And if we look at that, we're running it at the moment. The preliminary data shows engineers is number one. It has been for the last 6 years, comes out top. Then C-suite executives, especially those with cross-border experience in terms of dealing with multinationals. We also see senior finance executives on that list. Anything across the sort of technology sector, developers, programmers, ICT specialists is on that list. And then obviously healthcare professionals also highly rated in terms of skill shortage.
Wow. Do we know whether there is some kind of deadline? Because this is a pilot project that is being run by the department, and so it probably has a cut-off date.
So in terms of expressing interest for businesses, they need to do so before the 20th of November. And then the department will obviously go through a selection criteria, and then I understand that the pilot project will be for 100 days. And then after that 100 days, the feeling is that then more businesses might be invited to the scheme, or the scheme might be adjusted slightly based on what those first 100 days shows.
Okay, so the scheme is almost a test.
Correct.
To say how hungry are businesses for this kind of thing in order to cut red tape and get these people in here quicker, and depending on how well it works, it may stay, or the department will still do away with it. Do I have that correct?
Absolutely, yes. But the hunger from business, just the response that we've seen from business in the couple of days that the Gazette has been issued, has been tremendous. So I think it's going to be hugely in demand from a business point of view, and we're looking forward to see how it plays out in the first 100 days.
All right. Marisa Jacobs, thank you very much for joining us in studio here to discuss this matter, Managing Director at Xpatweb.